Hey guys, it is Bree here and Alan with the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.
And on today's episode, I'm so excited to welcome my great friend, Josh Janis, who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. As well, he and I have started a social event company. We are doing cold exposures along with yoga and breathing. So check it out. Listen to the episode. We talk about all of those things and everything in between as usual. So if you have questions, definitely feel free to reach out.
And a huge thank you to Brianna Cote for all of our still photography and marketing materials, and Allison Band, Alllyson Band, for our intro and outro music. And as always, thank you for listening and continuing to listen. If you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe, leave us a rating, and share with your friends. Enjoy the episode.
Awesome. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Good. Very good.
Good.
The background stress of counting and oh gosh. Okay, I think we're good now.
We're definitely good now. As you might hear, we have a different voice on the podcast today. We are welcoming my good friend Josh Janis, and yeah, we brought him on along with, we have the wonderful Bree on as well.
What's up?
I think this is the first episode that we've done with 3 people. Yeah.
No, we did intuitive eating.
Oh, that's right, with Jenny.
You should listen to the podcast.
I don't listen to the podcast. I absolutely don't.
I am the podcast.
Yeah, right. I was talking with someone recently, and they were listening to episodes, and they were like, "Oh, this episode where you said this," I'm like, I don't listen to any of the episodes, so I don't remember what I said in what episode. So you'll have to jog my memory a little bit better.
I would occasionally listen to the episodes depending on what it was to make sure that, you know, I came across or communicated in a way that I wanted to or made sure of it. But for the most part, I agree. It's weird to hear yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the hard thing is you can listen to it and you're like, man, why did I say that? And it's already done. You can't take it back. It's already out there.
The funny thing is, I personally don't think like, why did I say that? I'll always think like, could I have said that better, to like analyze it and learn from it, I suppose.
I will admit, because I create some online courses, the first one I pre-recorded, I would watch before I formatted it. And I noticed some of the words, the filler words, and it prompted me to record future videos and be very mindful of those words. So and that's one of them. So I can understand why you would say that. But when you listen to yourself, you're like, wow, I say that word a lot unnecessarily.
I don't know what you're talking about, really.
I hear it in other people too. I was with some friends, and both her and her husband say, you know, a lot. Like they put, you know, and it's, yeah. And then
I found I use, you know, when I don't. when I don't feel confident about what I'm saying, I say, you know what I mean? So
I was in a corporate meeting once where exactly that happened. The guy used, oh, you know what I mean? And he didn't, right? Like he definitely was not confident, and none of us did. And someone literally spoke up and was like, no, I don't. Yeah, it was the best thing I've ever heard. It was great.
It's part of my job to say, no, I don't, pretty consistently when people say stuff like that. So I empathize with that no, I don't guy from your meeting.
Yeah. So anyway, Josh Janis is here. We brought Josh Janis on.
That's me, by the way. If you're watching this or this voice if you happen to be just listening.
We brought Josh Janis on, good friend of mine. We'll get into a bunch of our stories, maybe how we met. We'll see where it goes. And nothing's scripted here. So, but we brought Josh Janis on to really talk about some really cool stuff that we're working on. So I'll turn it over to Josh. Maybe just introduce yourself and talk about Gentle Art Lifestyle, what we're working on a little bit, and some of the events we have going on.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Josh. Nice to meet you guys. Alan, well, let's see, where should I start? If you want me to start with the events we're doing are pretty cool. That's a pun, because what we're doing is yoga, Wim Hof method, and cold exposure, ice baths, and hopefully on a relatively big scale. One of the events that we have here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin could be up to 570 people, which provides a really cool atmosphere to learn, whether it be yoga or Wim Hof method style breathing or cold exposure, but also provide some challenges for us of how do you teach. You could teach a class of 20 and we're pretty familiar with that, or a class of even 40, 50, but doing 500 and some is going to be a challenge, which I'm excited about.
Absolutely.
The events are about 3 hours long, about an hour of yoga, 45 minutes of understanding diaphragmatic breathing, utilizing Wim Hof method. And we can, if you don't know what that is, I suggest Google him. Very interesting character. And then cold exposure, just a bunch of ice baths, both individual ice bath and team ice bath, which are like big kiddie pools full of ice. So you can go in with the people that you came with and share that experience with others. The whole idea is to help people, or at least introduce people to tools that could possibly help them de-stress.
Is it BYOIB?
No, BY your own ice bath?
Yeah.
No, it is not BYO. Wait, bring your own IB. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is IB? Isn't there like a irritable bowel syndrome?
IBS.
IBS.
Well,
please.
if you have IBS, this might help you with it, but don't bring it into the IB.
Right.
Well, it's definitely BYO IBS, but it's not BYO IB. It is. We supply the wonderful coaching, the yoga done by Mr. T himself. And I will be leading the Wim Hof method breathing, and we'll kind of all come together on the ice exposure or cold exposure, excuse me. We'll provide all the tubs, all the ice, all the water, all that kind of stuff. Bring your mats, bring your towels, and an open mind.
Yeah. So if you actually go check out the gentleartlifestyle.com/breathe, that's BREATHE. We'll also link this into the show notes. This takes you to Josh's website and also our page for Breathe Social. So the company name, the event name is Breathe Social, and our tagline, Josh already mentioned it, but de-stress with friends. And we have links here. Big shout out to Megan Wagner because she handled all the website design for this, and the website is incredible. The functionality is amazing. But the tickets are on sale now for all 3 events, and you can.
And where are they?
Yeah,
I don't know if that was said.
Yeah, no, that wasn't. So
I slipped it in. I slipped it in here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, so general location is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But if you just show up to Milwaukee, you might be looking around. Follow the crowd, right? We're gonna have 570 people there.
Follow the crowd.
Follow the crowd. But the first event, August 5th. That's this August 5th. That's coming up in 3 weeks. We're really excited for it. It's at the Marcus Performing Arts Center. In this big grassy area outside of the Performing Arts Center. It's right outside the amphitheater. Which is
a downtown. I mean, it's a wonderful place in the heart of downtown Milwaukee. this beautiful setting with, a big screen so you can see it. You could be in the back and still see us, and good audio. It's going to be a really cool venue. So, and right in the heart of Milwaukee.
Yeah. And if you know anything about me and my yoga classes, right, like it's going to be a fucking party. And Josh, right? Josh brings his own energy, right? Definitely different than mine, but he's an incredible breath guide and an incredible energy to just have in this presence. So definitely check it out.
Now that,
yeah,
sorry,
no, go ahead.
you just came to me something that's kind of interesting that I didn't think about before. You're going to show up, and it's at 9 a.m. So, maybe you show up at 8:30, but you're going to get the event started at 9, and you're going to have this like ramp up kind of, party yoga, like you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just like a narrative of a book, then it's going to come back down. We're going to explore our breathing. We're going to have this, meditative state. And then we're going to, after we get some of these Wim Hof breathings and these breath holds and some energy back, then we're going to get to this crescendo of ice and water and, this scary thing that you're going to overcome. And afterwards, we're going to have this social. It's like we're reborn. It's really a cool narrative that we have going on here as far as an event's concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, and like you mentioned this crescendo of like ice, it made me think of what are we having to get? Was it like 4,000 pounds of ice?
Total, it's going to be 5 for all the 3 events.
Yeah. So 5,000 pounds of ice. So think about like when you go to the store and you like, oh, we're having a party, and you get a bag of ice. You're talking about 7, 16, maybe 20-pound bag of ice. Right. We're talking about 5,000 pounds of ice at these events. So it's going to be
lots of ice.
Yeah.
It'll be a really cool time. I gotta stop doing that. Megan says puns aren't funny. I disagree.
I think you're punny.
Okay, thank you.
So then we have a second event. So we have 3 events total. Second event is at the Bradford Beach Pavilion. It's on Bradford Beach. The very first time I got to visit Milwaukee was last September. And I was out exploring around by myself, and Josh was like, you need to go check out Bradford Beach. And I was like, yeah, it's a hot summer day on Labor Day weekend. Like, I'll go check it out. It was incredible. If you've never been on Lake Michigan, I don't know why they call it a lake other than it's natural water, but like it feels and looks like an ocean. I had this discussion with someone else. Like, is that the definition? It's a lake because it's not salted water?
Not smart enough for that. No, because there are saltwater lakes.
It's landlocked. Well,
it's
not because of the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Yeah. And these lakes are huge. And I was just recently in Canada, Lake Ontario, another like, I mean, it's in the name.
Visually,
they're great lakes.
Visually, it's an ocean. I mean, it's just like being on an ocean. The waves are just a little bit smaller.
Yeah. So anyway, Bradford Beach, it's amazing. There's this elevated deck platform. Is that what you would call it?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And it's going to fit about 150 people.
Ish. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 100. I think 140. That was what we had.
Yep. So that's August 26th. And then this one, I'm excited for all of them, but this last one, September 16th, I'm really stoked for. It's at the Milwaukee Athletic Club. This is a private club, but it's not just like inside like a gymnasium. It's on a rooftop. It's on the rooftop overlooking downtown Milwaukee, looking at, there's like views of Lake Michigan, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And again,
Ocean Michigan, you mean?
Ocean Michigan, yes.
Ocean Michigan. Yeah.
Ocean Michigan.
Ocean
Michigan.
Yes.
The ocean, Lake Michigan. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm really stoked for that because that'll be an experience. Again, another event where we're going to fit well over 100 people. And it's going to be a good time. Also,
something that we didn't talk about as part of this like crescendo and being a new person is afterwards we have this kind of social aspect where people can bring coolers, people can bring their own drinks, people can, whether it be at Bradford Beach, just move on to the beach and hang out on the beach and play some volleyball if you want, or at the Marcus Performing Arts Center, it's right on the Riverwalk. So you could just graduate to the Riverwalk, bring a cooler, meet some new friends. We want it to be a social, fun event so people come back. The MAC itself, the Milwaukee Athletic Club itself, has a full bar and restaurant on the rooftop as well. So that could be a part of it. So there's this big social aspect that we're hoping for. And, there's my goal, or the way that I envision it, I think, and I hope Alan agrees, but not like you have to buy a beer, but you can bring your own in like a tailgate feel. You guys tailgate in Colorado? I don't know if that's
we do.
All right.
But we do it at the ski slopes. So like we get to the ski slopes early, and people are drinking beer at like 6 a.m. and then go snowboarding and break ribs and things like that. Yeah.
That's
a good time. It's a good time.
Seems wise.
It's smart. It's smart. It's the Colorado way.
Perfect.
Yeah. But I do want to add just something to the social aspect, right? The social aspect, I talk about this a lot in my yoga classes, and I'm going to say it here, and I'm going to say it at these events. Our yoga or our events are not just social for afterwards. It's social when you're inviting your friends and bringing your people with you, and it starts when you make the decision, right, to come to one of our events, right? It's the excitement that's going to brew. And I tell people that it's, yoga starts when you decided to come to class. And, oftentimes I don't start my yoga classes, like if it has like a quote start time of 8 o'clock, I don't start my classes at 8 o'clock because I really enjoy the buzz of the social aspect. And we lost a lot of that during the pandemic, right? Zoom yoga, we lost the buzz, we lost the connection to other people. And that is an aspect of yoga. It's who we're connected to. It's an aspect of being human. So one of my favorite things is just sitting there, and I do it often. I just sit there forever and just let people talk and new people. It's not just like people who know each other. I gave a similar speech like this in one of my classes, and 2 people were talking, and I knew of these people, like they'd been in my class before, and I was just like, do you 2 know each other? And they were like, no. And I was like, oh, well, now you do.
Yeah.
Boom. Right. And so, yeah, we're going to have absolutely that social aspect at the end, but it starts now. It starts when you're getting excited about this and you start telling other people about it, and then you start making your way to the event, and you carpool, and right, and you don't know what it's going to be, and right, all of that excitement, embrace that. It's going to be amazing.
That sounds awesome. I'm in. Be flying in, Bree?
I'm not. Well,
it's okay. You don't listen to our podcast. She's not coming to our events.
I know. Well, September is archery season. So I'll be in Colorado actually in September. And then I have a few things in August that.
Archery season?
Hunting. Yeah. Archery elk.
Hunting. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. So you're elk hunting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then August, I'm like in this place of like wanting to be where I am. Geographically, just because I've had some travel, and in the fall it'll pick back up. So it's like I want to be in the Black Hills, like enjoying my time here while I have it before I'm kind of a little more transient in the fall. So
where are you going? What is transient? Like
so I'll go down to Colorado for archery elk season. Mid-August, I'm just going to the eastern side of the state to Sioux Falls for a concert. But then I have a breathwork training in Florida in November. So yeah, and I'm trying to I moved to to Hill City, the Black Hills, almost a year ago, and still in the phase of building the yoga community here in the hills, because in Rapid City, which is the closest city, they have a yoga community, but I'm working on it here. So there's being in and out is not always ideal when you're trying to build something.
You know, I just thought of something. Which one's the hunter and which one's the hippie?
Ah, that's the great question.
Mhm.
We're both in neither. And if you, and in our first episode, we talk a lot about this. But that's exactly it. We started this show after the pandemic, and Bree and I got on the phone. I think it was in like September, October. Bree and I talked for about 2.5 hours, just catching up like friends do. And at the end of the conversation, one of us made a joke like, "Oh, I wish that was recorded." And then like I think I text her again and was like, "Man, I really wish that was recorded." There were some things said that I want to go back to. And she said, "Let's start a podcast." And she had the name ready to go, and she was just like, "The Hunter and the Hippie."
A great
And,
name.
and I was like, "Yes." And January 3rd was our release of our first episode, 2021. And it was because of a lot of the divisiveness we saw on the labels, and because you're one thing doesn't mean you're another, or doesn't mean you're anything, right? Like, who's coming up with these labels? You know, I often argue, right? Like, yeah, I hunt, and I'm also a hippie, and you know, I'm very connected with the earth. I'm very connected with my food source and all that. So my answer is always we're both and neither, because why does it matter?
It's a good answer. Why does it matter? So fuck off for asking.
Yeah.
Sorry, kids.
Don't put me in a box.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Nice. Do you do jujitsu, Bree?
No, I don't. Never done it.
That is something,
Ever.
that's something I'm going to peer pressure you into.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I actually like, it seems super cool, and I feel like I'd be really into it. I also have a lot of hobbies that are time consuming, and I'm in this stage of, I really pride myself on not being busy. So like adding another thing to my plate, oftentimes will mean giving up something else. And there's not a lot I want to give up right now.
Yeah.
And not that I'm not open to like trying new things. Yeah, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Gotcha. The idea of being busy. I feel like busy has a negative connotation. I don't know, maybe I'm alone in that, but like I'm busy, I'm too busy. Like it just I don't know.
Yeah, people use it, I think. Well, I also think there's like a inadvertent like pride some people have in being busy because it means they're important. Right? Because if like all these people are requesting your time, you must be important. But also, you know, I lived in New York for a long time. I lived in LA, and right, it's that again, coming back to that, who works the most, who does, you know, this pride in something that doesn't resonate with me personally anymore. And I like slowing down and
Yeah.
then just, you know, not feeling like I have to go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So, and I have phases where I'm busy, you know, quote unquote busy, but again, like I said, I pride myself on like being as least busy as possible.
I think that's wise. Or at least a perception of least busy, because you could go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing and not have a label that's just, I mean, the way that we as humans process time, we don't have a choice. We're always going to be going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's just how do we judge that? Whether that next thing is laying on the bed to laying on the couch, or that next thing is going from hunting to jujitsu. You know, we're always going to be doing that. It's just how are we perceiving it, and you know, is it in tune with what, you know, the universe has planned for us, or what you have planned for yourself, or what, you know, however you want to look at it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I like what you said, the negative like it's almost like the energetics of busy. I don't like the the energy that usually like is associated with that term busy.
Yeah.
I think in addressing like the energy aspect, I think that they're like it's used as an excuse as to not being accountable to something else, right? Like, why didn't you call me? Oh, I got so busy, right? Like, why didn't you call your mother, right? Like, oh, I was so busy, or why didn't you do this thing? And really it comes down to, accountability and ownership. And like, I didn't want to call, or I chose not to call, right? I put my efforts, I put my focus into these things, right? Like, I love the way that you really said, like, have you done jujitsu, Bree? No, I haven't. And right now I have all these things that I currently love to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think busy is also like it's used as our excuse for stress.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's an association there of versus like here you guys are presenting this experience of de-stressing with friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like part of I might be going from I might have a jam-packed day, but it doesn't feel busy because I'm implementing the things that are maintaining my stress level or keeping me in a very calm state as I go from action to action to action or
Right.
obligation to obligation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at. It doesn't feel busy if you have love, passion behind what you're going to next.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that could be anything. Like, I'm taking a nap. I'm sorry, I'm busy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, I'm priority. I love that nap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't need judgment, I suppose.
I
And
think
like
that,
nervous system regulation in there too. It's like and maybe there's a level of like mindfulness and intention, right? It's not mindlessly going from like I think busyness can swoop you up into this like autopilot. I don't know if I'd even say autopilot, but it's almost like busyness puts it out like it's like out of your control or out of your not control, but
I agree with what you're saying. I think
Yeah.
you could go with that and we'll get the point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple things. I'm gonna use two of the things that you said both to segue it, right? You talked about regulating your nervous system, and you talked about things that you're passionate about. And I'm going to use those to segue into ice baths because Josh, right? Like I've like done ice baths prior to you, but really like you and meeting you, like it got me further into it. So maybe just expand on what the whole point of deliberate cold exposure and or like from your view and sort of why you're passionate about it, and maybe jiu-jitsu is part of that. I don't know.
You had asked earlier, if people are still listening, you had asked earlier about gentle art lifestyle as well. And I think, as we have on the site, like the idea of providing opportunities to individuals and groups for physical and mental balance is our mission with gentle art lifestyle. And the opportunities that I found, and we can switch opportunities, the word opportunities, with tools. The tools that I found for me in my life are jujitsu, cold exposure, meditation, breath work, which those intertwine for me quite a bit, and giving people an opportunity to use those tools to the best, or at least open the door for them. Hey, these tools are out there. That's how I got into it. I mean, essentially, like those things. Like, I mean, I started jiu-jitsu in 2000, which dates me, but so quite a while ago.
You are pretty old.
That's hurtful coming from you, old graybeard. Um, I, so I started jiu-jitsu a long time ago. The first time that I got exposed to the cold, or to like cold exposure, or the idea of cold exposure, was when I was a kid. I remember a news story about the polar bears going into the ocean, Michigan. And that was a callback.
We're totally going to change it. We're
Yeah,
going to get
the ocean, Michigan.
Ocean, Michigan.
And I remember my grandma saying, those guys train all year to go into the lake. And then I was like 22 years old. And I was like, I had partied. By the way, the polar bear, I should say, when they go into Lake Michigan is New Year's Day at noon. People go into the lake, run in there, have a good time, and then come back out. Well, I was 22. I was like, I can do this. I'm not a bitch. I can fight through it. So I brought a lot of Jameson with me and got, pretty drunk, and then went in and did the polar plunge. Right. And I don't, beyond the Jameson, I don't really remember much of it. But I do remember coming out and just feeling invigorated, like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, I felt like it was a wonderful way to start a new year. It was like cleansing yourself, starting this new year. And then throughout the years, I had done the polar plunge, and then I had learned, years later, about this, wacky guy, Wim Hof, and I try to keep an open mind to just about everything. And I appreciated how he expressed his breathing pattern, which is, he didn't make it up. He just markets it really well. I appreciate how he does that. I appreciate what he puts him through. And I just started doing it like as often as I could. So it wasn't just, when I would, the first of the year, right? It was, oh, well, I can get a tub, or I can do this, and I can get some ice, and let's just do it. Or, I feel really beat up. I'm going to throw some ice in the bathtub and do that. Or I'm going to try a cold shower, which I still hate cold showers.
The worst, the absolute worst.
Yeah, we can get into that, but it really is. But so then it just gradually grew on me. And the way that I feel when I get out, the ability to find peace in a place that is very difficult to find peace in. The cold challenges me. I can only speak for me, I suppose, but the cold challenges me to find that peace, find that tranquility when everything is like, get the fuck out of this thing. Right. And because of that, I feel like I'm more peaceful because I've gone to the gym, if you will, right? That's going to the gym as far as my anxiety is concerned. Because I've gone to the gym, well, now I'm a little bit healthier. And so then when something does come up that's stressful during the day, any day, then I feel like I'm better prepared to handle that. And so not only does it have physical benefits, because I do jujitsu, on average, probably 5 days a week. And, I'm 40 years old. So, that can take a beating on your body. Not only is it good for that, but it's, I think, even more important, good for your mind.
So you said a few things. I want to just go back to the gentle art lifestyle real quick. The one thing you missed, or I think that you missed, I can't tell you what your mission and all that is, but is the
No, you could. I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah, right. Is the connectedness. Everything that you do, right? So Josh has White Lotus, which is his, he co-owns with his partner Megan. It's their jiu-jitsu academy in Milwaukee. But it's also a reference to some anime show that I'm not very familiar with because I'm not
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Right. So
Uncle Iroh, in case you guys know, is my favorite character from Avatar: The Last Airbender. He was the head of a secret organization, which was the White Lotus. Continue. Right. Sorry. There's some nerds out there that will be like, "Oh, that's so cool."
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've seen it happen, right? Like I've seen it happen, and I've got to witness it, and that is a social aspect. And we have this breathe with it, which is breathe social. Literally, it's in the name. He does coaching, right? Communication coaching, and then and then lastly, for now, he has camps, right? Like where he's hosting camps, groups of people together, bringing people together to do jujitsu and ice baths and jumping in Lake Michigan in winter. And I just wanted to point that out, that like, yeah, you have these other tools, but you also have this one big tool that I'm huge on, which is this connectedness.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way of putting it. The way that I think about it is these tools are a part of me who is one. And I have felt that I should dedicate my life to understand, well, I don't want to put it that way. These pieces of me, I would like the wisdom to know how to use so I can share that wisdom with others. And because these are the ones that have spoken to me, I don't want to sound too hippie-ish. I suppose this would be the website or the website, not the podcast. Can't talk. But those are the ones that have spoken to me, and therefore I can be congruent in offering all of these things under one umbrella, because that is me. I do all of these things. I'm not just saying, hey, like I don't practice yoga very often. Very rarely do I practice yoga. But Alan, that's a huge part of him, right? And like, I think that's what you need, or at least to me, I think that's what you need. That you need to have these expressions that are a part of you, and there is always going to be a link between them. So that's how I look at all these different things, and to have any of them be successful, community is important.
Yeah, for sure. So one other thing you didn't touch on, but you had asthma pretty bad as a kid and even as an adult.
More so as an adult, but yes, yeah.
Have you seen benefits from cold
You're
exposure? Like jiu-jitsu doesn't seem like a good thing for an asthmatic person.
When
don't
I
know
was
the answer to that,
27, I mean, anybody that trains jiu-jitsu out there will understand this. But so jiu-jitsu, especially in the beginning, is very difficult. You have a person that's trying to kill you, you know, especially if you're younger, you still have an ego, like I should win. And, you know, maybe you hold your breath, you try to kill that other person, and it's two wild animals going at it, right? Or that's what it can be. That's not how I view it now, but that's what it can be. And it can be very difficult on your cardiovascular system. When I was 27, I remember this. I was the heaviest that I've ever been. I realize now, looking back, I didn't know how to breathe. Normally I walk around at 160, 162. I was 177. I went out to Colorado, actually, to see a show at Red Rocks, and I was dying going up the to go see the show, or going up the steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what the fuck? And I was on a couple different inhalers, you know, all these different things. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I don't, why is this happening? And, you know, it's just asthma, and you got to take this one daily, and this one's your rescue. And this, you know, as it turns out, yeah, I'm allergic to a lot of things, but I didn't know how to breathe. Like I legitimately was breathing. I was always in this state of stress, and my body just was not reacting to it. Once I realized, like, oh, I can diaphragmic breathe, and I'm getting more oxygen, and I started playing with that concept, and I'm finding things like Wim Hof, and finding things that help me, or that challenge this narrative that I can't breathe. It's helped tremendously. Another random thing, and this is a complete random shout out, but the Boss Rutan O2 trainer, I have one next to me. This was not planned, but I still do it. It's just this, and you can breathe out of like a little hole, and then it just blows the air out as you go. This has strengthened my diaphragm so much. We used to do 3-minute rounds. I'd be dying. I'd have to sit out one, and then I'd try it again. And now, after all these things combined and understanding how to breathe, I can roll for hours. The main camp, I did the whole 3-hour open mat. There's like 2 hours and 45 minutes of essentially straight rolling, which is a lot. Now, of course, there's a difference in skill between me and 13 years ago and me now, but it's still a lot.
Still, yeah, it still takes a toll.
Yeah. And, there's nothing cardiovascular that, I had my oxygen levels and I had my breath and I was fine. I mean, I felt a little beat up the next day, but so these things have positively impacted my life, to a large extent.
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Well, because so much of asthma it's inflammation, right? And stress is one of the leading causes of inflammation within our body. And so when you, like, even on so many different layers, what the breath does for you, just like you said, being able to expand your diaphragm, have that longer, slower breathing, allowing for more optimal oxygen absorption.
Yeah.
So it's the utilization of the oxygen versus just, it's not the amount of O2, is your body turning it over to be used. And then the natural kind of relaxation or calming parasympathetic pieces of focused breathing, then in itself, right, that de-stress is allowing for that inflammation to calm down, which can resolve asthma, right? I mean, it's incredible the different layers that it works on, I think, and to hear your personal experience with it.
Yeah. I mean, when that happened, the going up to Red Rocks, it was like when I was a kid, it was allergy induced asthma. So like I'm allergic to cats and dogs as an example. And then that grew and grew and grew. And then now, like I'm allergic to half the dogs. Depends on what kind of dog. All cats still suck for me. Sorry, cat lovers. But it's just shifted so much, like my ability to, and I should say those allergies, so that manifested through my lungs. So it would be like, and then that's obviously no fun. But that sounds accurate. I'm just anecdotally telling you what happened to me, and if anybody ever had any questions about that, definitely open to answering any questions from an anecdotal perspective.
It's funny, I was talking with a friend recently about like this anecdotal evidence versus scientific evidence. And I was like, wait a second, isn't scientific evidence just a bunch of anecdotal evidence put together? Like really and typically it starts with like something like this, like, that's weird. I changed something and something changed. I wonder if this is repeatable, right? Like, so although it's anecdotal, right? Like, I think that there's absolute truth to it. And we're starting to see so much from, right, people like Wim Hof, like he's a master marketer. That's what he does. And that's why it's getting the attention. And people like Joe Rogan and, all Bree's personal doctor, Dr. Andrew Huberman, right? Like, right. Huberman just put out a post today that brief deliberate cold positively changes the brain circuits for mood. And the thing that I thought interesting in his post, right? So like we sort of know this already, like this has been talked about, but what he says is a new study describes a very brief 5 minutes deliberate cold exposure, essentially using water not even that cold, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius. I was like, whoa, that's new to me, to my understanding of this, right? Like I have a lot more to understand about cold exposure, but when I read that, I was like, wow, that's essentially not really cold at all. Because when, Josh and I have had the opportunity to get in some pretty cold waters, like together, Lake Michigan, halfway around the world.
Like Michigan in February is really cold.
Yeah.
33 degrees.
Josh and I also got into the Baltic Sea in Estonia, which was close to freezing, I think we found out.
Yeah.
And right, like we're in the 30s, and when we do ice baths, we're talking about ice baths in the 40s. So to see something like this, that the benefits start happening so much sooner. And I love that, yeah, we go from anecdote to science, but we need the anecdotes, we need the stories, we need this to really kickstart and push towards like, oh, all we need 68-degree water. At least you can do something, right? I'd take 68-degree water over nothing at this point, if that's what I had access to. So I thought that
Yeah.
was really, really cool information.
Now, is he your personal doctor? That's what I want to know.
No, I don't, I don't have a doctor, so I use him as my, it was like kind of a running joke because, yeah, I don't have health insurance. So yeah, I haven't seen a doctor in, I don't know how many years, but I was like, I'm going to support him. Like you can be like the, premium subscriber, and then you have access to ask me anything. And I
Oh,
was like, I'll just, I'll do that, pay $100 a year, and I'll just submit my questions to him to, if I
that's
have any medical questions.
awesome.
So he is your personal doctor. If he's asking,
But I haven't done any of the AMAs yet. So, but no,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
that's
but
cool.
it's no. And I think with I was listening to something recently, maybe it was RFK Jr. with Joe Rogan. And it talked a lot about this, right? Like personal experience and the validity of that, right? Because here's the challenge with a lot of scientific studies on humans is that we are so unique, right? Like there's so many factors that go into our lifestyle. Like you will never be able to like identically put a group of 20 people to have the same exact factors in testing.
Right.
So, like, yes, it's great to get ideas around it, but personal experience is the best confirmation of whatever it is you're trying to prove or explore for yourself, right? And then we get to take your story, apply it to ourselves, and see what works and what doesn't. And I think that is like, I don't know. I guess that to me is hearing a story like yours is so much more significant personally than needing to get the data on it.
Good. I just had a thought and I had a brain fart. Back to these again.
Well,
Um,
let me help
good.
you out there, because maybe
Yeah.
it was the same train of thought, because life is weird. But from any study, Alan could look at the same study as I do and get different results or different headlines. So
Mhm.
that's something that can be a little tricky in and of itself, at least from a communication aspect. What I really have a problem with is like just dismissiveness of either outliers or placebo effect, like it's not something, or well, this could never work, this only worked on 20% of people, or which scientifically isn't effective, and while that could have only worked, well, yes, but isn't that still isn't that still something? Perhaps that something delivers hope to a person. And how powerful is hope?
Mhm.
If you don't have hope, you're fucked. If you don't think that you can get better, there is not anything in the world that's going to get you better. You have to think. That's why it's so powerful to have these drug companies and these lab coat doctors, is because they provide something that the culture trusts, and you trust what they're doing. They are going to get you better. It's not really you're going to get yourself better, because that's actually what's happening, right?
Mhm.
But we trust this system, and it's brilliant. I mean, I appreciate it, and it's useful in that. But I think we should be a little bit more open to the idea that perhaps there's things that are out there, even if it's anecdotal, that can give hope, and maybe we don't just shit on it.
And so that wasn't my point, but that's a really valid point.
Damn
I
it.
did remember because what you said did trigger it back. And Bree mentioned something like, hey, maybe what works for you doesn't work for me type of thing. But there's a deeper side to that: consistency, right? So you don't get to get in one ice bath and
Hmm.
say that it doesn't work for me. Right. And you touched on this earlier. You provide tools, not a tool, right? There's not one tool. If I said, hey, Josh, what's the one thing, right? There's not one thing.
Right.
Right. It's I do this for this. I do this for this. I do this for this. And sometimes it doesn't work when I do this. So then I jump to this tool, right, for that same thing. Or maybe I combine them or I use them differently. But the key is that you do them consistently. And there's, right, the easiest one that I can think of is just like being overweight, right? Like, so people go on a diet for a very short period of time. They lose a few pounds, but then they don't stay off, or their body doesn't change, they don't add muscle mass, whatever it is. Where it took you how long to become overweight, right? It probably didn't happen in this fad diet timeline, right? Where it took you 20 years to become overweight, and it just happened gradually. It's the boiling the frog thing, where it's to get better, to no longer be overweight, to be healthy, to be strong. It's going to take a lot of that same timeline to be consistent. And yeah, sometimes you fall off your consistency, and then you pick it back up, and you get after it again, and you keep going. So I think that's a huge part of one, anecdotes and using these tools, and then there's other factors, right, like that we're not being previewed to. And I'll use the Liver King as an example, right? Like, if everyone remembers the Liver King, this big jack dude, not on steroids, definitely not on steroids, right? Like eating raw liver and bull testicles, but I'm definitely not
I
on
don't know who the
steroids.
Liver King is.
Really?
No,
Oh,
never
wow.
heard.
I thought you,
I'm gonna
oh
have
yeah.
to look this up.
Oh yeah. So like
What
this
is
guy, he's like jacked, and he lives in a mansion, and he straps on a belt and pulls his $90,000 truck down his driveway, and he's just all theatrics, but he's definitely not on steroids until right. right. So like,
liver, like LIVER?
yeah, like your
Okay.
liver.
He said that he just ate red meat,
Yeah.
Okay.
specifically liver.
And so and he got a following, and I don't think what he created was bad, because I do believe that there's some benefit to the exercise, the diet, and eating a certain way. But where he lost a lot of people was he was on steroids, a shit ton of steroids, and like emails came out like saying, like, him requesting, he's like, I need as much steroids as possible to make me as huge as, like, it was like the most asinine thing ever. And it like, there's bills of like $15,000 plus of him just buying all of these steroids. And so I'm just coming through on the other side of things, where like, yeah, consistency and doing these things and having these tools is really important. There's also like things that you don't know, like, is the Liver King on steroids? I mean, we all knew the Liver King was on steroids, but you get, hopefully I've drawn parallels, and you can get the point that I'm making.
Yeah, that's why I think you should have a mind that's open to everything, but not necessarily attached to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, with that said, with attachments and all that, I think breath is a big helping hand in that. And
It's the most important thing you can do any day. There's nothing more important than you breathing. You will die if you don't breathe.
Yeah.
If you don't breathe for 10 minutes, see you later, alligator.
So I'm gonna throw Josh on the spot here. He doesn't have to, but I'm gonna throw him on the spot here, and I think Bree's okay with it because she knows where I'm going. So every episode we do a breathing exercise every episode, whether it be at the beginning, middle, end. Right? Today it's at the end. Do you have a breathing exercise that you would like to share with our audience that you could walk all of us through and do for a 2 to 3 minute clip, and then end it, and I'll take over.
Well,
Right.
and why doesn't he do the journal prompt too?
Oh, that would be great.
We do
So
a breath and a journal prompt. So it could be anything, like a question for people to reflect on, whatever you want.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so we also do a journal prompt where we're big on journaling, and I know you journal too. So if you want to tell them what to journal about. Are you up for the challenge?
I mean, sure, yeah.
All right. Well, it's on you. So take it away. Lead us through a breath. That's, like I said, 2 to 3 minutes, and then end on a
or
journal
you can do
prompt.
journal prompt first if that's coming to mind first. You can do that.
Yep.
That's why I'm writing this down, so then I don't forget what I had come to mind in that initial journal prompt type of thing. Okay, 2 to 3 minutes. So we're not going to get through a whole Wim Hof method style breathing. So I think what I'm going to do is just explain how I feel about breath, and hopefully it resonates with you, or at least how I communicate breathing, and hopefully that resonates with you and helps you kind of understand diaphragmatic breathing or breathing in general. So when I had asthma, it would seem when I was breathing that my chest would go. Pretend like you were super tired, or that you had just seen something super scary, right? And that type of breathing, like, oh my gosh, that was kind of the state that I would be in. Maybe not that pronounced, but that was kind of the state that I would be in. Once I understood diaphragmatic breathing, it kind of got introduced to me as belly breathing. Belly breathing helps me understand that I shouldn't be just expanding my chest, but it's kind of a bigger thing. And I should be expanding my belly. And obviously this Zoom is not going to allow me to do that. But
stand up and pull your shirt up, and
that's not going to happen. Yeah.
oh, okay.
This isn't that type of show. I'm sure kids are watching. I don't know. Okay. So then I understood it as belly breathing, and that when I'm taking big, deep breaths, I want to expand my belly, which isn't necessarily wrong. And as you look at it from how I was breathing, it is an improvement. Then it went to something along the lines of expansion like an umbrella. So don't think about your lungs as just protruding out in one direction, right? Think about the diaphragm expanding in all directions, right? So then I started breathing with that in mind. Okay. I still use, by the way, when I coach, I will still use the term belly breathing, even though I feel like in my personal practice, I have gone past that. That being said, that was my first stop along this journey. And so I still do use that because, quite frankly, it's where a lot of people, I'm trying to meet the people where they're at. So now I have this umbrella and my lungs are opening from all sections. All right. Then I think about it from, I'm trying to take in air and suck it down to my tailbone. So I'm not trying to fill in anything necessarily. I'm trying to pull everything in and down. So it almost feels like everything is expanding. My lower back, my diaphragm, everything is expanding. Taking it in through all the way down. Last but not least, sometimes I don't think about it. I don't think about it as breath, like entering my nose and going down. I think about it as expansion of chest. And when you expansion of your diaphragm, expansion of the umbrella. And the more that you do that, the more air can come in. Okay, so I'm trying, instead of running us through a 2-minute thing, which certainly I didn't have prepared, I'm trying to give you the thoughts that have the timeline of thoughts that have come through my practice and my journey. Okay, so now I try to expand everything equally, sometimes not equally, and there are reasons for that. But I try to expand things equally, breathe in through my nose, which can be a challenge because it's not straight. I've broken it a few times, and there's problems with that. But for the most part, when I have strong diaphragmatic breathing, it's okay. So trying to breathe in through the nose, expanding everything, pulling it down to your tailbone, and being at peace in that breath. I personally, especially if I'm doing Wim Hof, and he says this, and it's just perfect. It's like a wave. It comes crashing in, and then it retreats back out. So I'm taking that deep breath in, all the way, sucking it down, and then I'm not pushing it out. I'm not like, I'm just relaxing all those muscles. So I was expanding the umbrella and then bringing the umbrella back in. Okay. And I don't normally in my breathing, if I'm using it as a meditation, there's a ton of different ways to breathe, and not only ways to breathe, but ways to breathe for X, whatever you're doing. Right. So for me, a lot of times when I'm focusing on breath, it is in tune with meditation. So I like to have this constant wave of breathing. So that was much longer than 2 to 3 minutes, I think, but it gives you some things to think about if you want to start your journey on how to breathe. Is that okay?
And that was well executed. Yeah, no, like it was well said, and I think that's a great visual representation of a lot of what Bree walks us through on our breathing exercises. So yeah, that was great.
Cool. Is that Bree approved? Did that?
Yeah. Well, it's all, I mean, yeah, I think even just saying that, you can have someone close their eyes and imagine that, right? Imagine it's an umbrella, right? All those pieces people are like, oh, that really works for me, right? It's that experiential part. And I love to hear your evolution of moving through it and just those different pieces, especially that last one, right? I'm not thinking about it going through my nose. I'm thinking about as I expand, it pulls that air in, and as I relax, it naturally pours itself out. Yeah.
I love the umbrella analogy, because to that exact same point, I thought of when like it's raining, if you're going to open an umbrella and you go to open it, but you don't get to the lock. And if you just let it go, it just closes. You don't have to pull it closed.
Right.
Right. Like it just closes. So like it immediately, right. Like it made me think of that. So like, I was like, oh, it was a really cool visual for me as well.
Yeah. As far as my journal entry, we'll call it challenge. And maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but I still think it'll be around what you want. So I would challenge people to today and tomorrow and the next day, as many times as it serves them, to recount a feeling in the day. So any feeling that you may have had, anger, sadness, joy, you name it. Recount that feeling and ask yourself, is this feeling serving me? I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, right?
Yeah.
Is this joy serving me to the person that I want to be? Maybe, probably. Joy sounds good. I like joy. Is this anger serving me? I kind of want to be a happy guy. So me being angry at these people, me being angry or honking my horn at the guy that just cut me off, maybe that's not, where I want to be. Yeah. Okay, that one's not serving me, right?
That's great.
So yeah, does this feeling serve me?
Cool.
Awesome.
Gosh, it was a pleasure having you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. So real quick, before we go quickly, because I am on a timeline, where can we find you? Where can people find you? Where can people reach out to you?
Well, I am a coach for My Odyssey, which is interpersonal communication development and strategy. You can find me on My Odyssey, myodisee.com. You can find me in regards to jujitsu or for breathing or cold exposure, whether it be events, we'll come to you and do some events if it's a corporate thing, or if it's an individual and you have any questions, at Gentle Art Lifestyle. I suppose that's a little bit longer to spell out, but GentleArtLifestyle. I think that spelled out Gentle Art Lifestyle, and if it didn't, I am sorry, but it's those 3 words.
And we'll link all links in our show notes. And then you're also on Instagram at Joshua
J_BJJ, which stands for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. By the way, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Awesome. Cool. Well, it was great having you, Josh. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.